Hey guys, how's it going? Chimp here, and decided to record another quick market update. I posted one yesterday, and boy, like what a move we've seen in the last 24 to 48 hours. And I've been talking a bit about how while we've been in this range, like all the reasons why I was leaning bullish, and I sort of gave like some devil's advocate arguments, like at times open interest was high, at times the micro price action was something to watch out for because maybe it starts printing something bearish. But we never sort of got a confluence of signals. And there was only ever like one or two warning flags. And, not even red warning flags, right? Like yellow, like one yellow flag. But then, like on the other side, you could look and see several reasons to be bullish. Um, and so here we are, like at 103,000. And again, like what a move off those lows, right? Like from 75 to the 80s and how we compressed and we popped. And I talked a bit about yesterday's video, like it really looked like bullish accumulation, like all these lows holding, you're printing these higher lows. And I talked about how like when you get a pump like this, when you come out of like 3 months of downside, people really aren't that positioned. And so here we are, like we've pumped, right? And the question now is like now we're sitting at 103, and what's next? And I think this is a spot where you have to be a lot more cautious. And I'll sort of give both arguments. I think there's much more reasons to be bearish or cautious here than there was earlier. And I'll give some arguments why. If you had to put a gun to my head, I'd say I'm slightly leaning bearish here, actually. I think the easy part, like, let me start by saying this. The easy part of the move is obviously done, right? Like, the easy part of the move was we pumped from 75 to 85. 85 looked like it was about to, looked like it wanted to break up. At 85, like, there's always this, if you watch my videos from the last month, like, the worst case scenario that I've sort of talked about has been like, hey, like at 85, I said, like, there's a chance we get a dip to, like, maybe sub 80 or low 80s, but, like, ultimately it's going to go up, right? And so, like, the ultimate trajectory has always been up, right? Like, what path you take to get there, maybe one path it's a little bit more choppy and one path it's a little bit more like max pain up only. And to date, we've only seen this max pain up only path. And on my feed, I've seen a lot of people doing various different like strategies or whatever. Like a lot of people trying to short on the way up, or people like shorting baskets of alts, and so forth. And look, here we are. Bitcoin is at 103,000, and again, like I said earlier, like let me start by just going over some of the reasons why I think this is an area that you want to be a little bit more cautious, and then I'll sort of pivot and give you the bull arguments. But as of right now, I'm leaning actually slightly more bearish, and I'll give the reasons why. First of all, like someone told me this in 2021, and it really stuck with me. And they said like when you take a trade and you decide to exit, like you have to ask yourself like, is the easy part of the move done? And like when you think about the move from 75 to, for all or like let's say 74.5 to 104.5, it's like a $30,000 pump in a month. Like to me, that is like the quote unquote easy move that's done. And we could keep going. In fact, like Bitcoin obviously like can keep going. This asset's like ultimately going to be worth a lot more someday. But the question is like, is the easy part of the move done? And I think the answer is yes. And now like the question is, now that we're here, like what are sort of how should we think about the supply and demand dynamics? So like earlier I talked about how like we tried to break down multiple times. It was clear that there wasn't enough supply to break us down. Like we keep bouncing at 80,000. Like you keep getting these compressions, but like actually you're getting this very bullish accumulation. What's the story now? Now that we're at 103,000. Well, now that we've pumped, and like I sort of kept making this argument like when we were a lot lower, which was hey, would someone like I said like, hey, most people have de-risked probably. Maybe they sold the top, maybe they sold at 80K, who knows? But like, how many people do you have that bought the bottom or didn't de-risk, and now all of a sudden we're gonna de-risk at 92K? Like, it didn't make much sense. But I think that story changes now that we're above 100 again. Like this 100 level, I wouldn't be surprised. Kind of similar to like the 70 level or the high 60s of summer of last year is a psychological level, well, where some sellers who didn't sell or sort of survive the chop come in and sort of like become repeat sellers. I think that's plausible. The difference now is like, obviously you've had Sailor, you've had like the Cantor Group, Semler, like all these people, and the ETFs, obviously. You've had all these people like come in and absorb a lot of the supply. So like whatever sort of free float or whatever marginal money that was going to sell here is probably less. Now, like, I think that there probably still is marginal money that would sell here, which is why I think it makes sense to be more cautious. But it's obviously less. Now, is the buying going to be less too? Maybe. Maybe Sailor's not going to be able to deploy the same amount of capital that he did the first time we were here as well. The other thing that sort of has me cautious, I'll talk about two things, which will sort of allow me to actually pivot more into the bull case as well. One is it's not just Bitcoin that's pumped, and like ETH is pumped, ETH BTC, and I don't think ETH is actually a problem. Like I think ETH, like I could see a scenario where BTC chops or even pulls back, and ETH actually just keeps running. Like I think ETH BTC is just so cheap that like you should ignore this coin specifically. But you've had a lot of other coins that have pumped, right? Like Fartcoin repumped today. Trump has like repumped significantly. Like this wasn't a Bitcoin only pump today. Like look at Sui, right? Sui is pumped from like $2 back to $4. Even shit that's like debt, right? Like Chill Guy, 2 cents to 7 cents. Again, totally dead memes. Peanut. It was literally at 15 cents. Now it's at 25 cents. So like you've actually had a lot of dog shit that's pumped alongside Bitcoin here. And and like that makes me more cautious. I don't like when the breadth of a pump is high. And lastly, I want to talk about one other thing, which you can view as bullish or you can view as bearish. So it kind of allows me to pivot into the bullish case, which is open interest. And we kept seeing like this story of open interest pumping and so forth and whatnot, and like look, like a lot, it turns out a lot of it was people trying to short 100K. And so like you've actually had a lot of forced buying that has led us to this 103, 104. Like if you were, I don't know if people were watching the price action in real time, but it looked pretty blow offy at 104.5. Not to say that we don't take it out. I mean, we're like $1,000 below it, but it looked pretty blow offy. You had like 2 waves of mega shorts closing, which sort of like pushed us into that level. And now the thing, like when you have a situation where shorts like all capitulate, now you basically need spot buyers to step in and push this higher. That or derivatives buyers to sort of like hold it in place. And so that's why I say, like, going back to the point I made earlier, like, hey, is the easy part of the move done? I think it is, because you don't have those shorts to hunt anymore. Like, I don't think there are that many shorts sitting at 110K ready to get popped. And so for that reason, I think, like, again, you had multiple sources of potential demand beneath us. And one of those factors, right, was, so for example, ETF buyers, Sailor, natural spot demand. But one of those was short covering. Now you don't have that short covering component. So, if you think the other 3 parts can continue to push the price higher, it's very plausible, right? Given how much money Sailor has been able to fundraise and do with and whatnot, very plausible. But are you going to get an extra push from shorts? No, not at this point. So, and by the way, like now that this open interest has come out, like funding rates, and granted it's just one print, like this is we finally hit neutral funding rates again. Like we haven't had neutral funding rates in so long, which is wild. So okay, so maybe I didn't explain the bearish thesis that well. Maybe it's like a bit of a black box in my mind. I think like given all these factors, Okay, so actually, let me give the bullish thesis, and let me give sort of like some potential like paths I could see price action taking. So what's the bullish case? Well, first of all, you could say like, look, we knocked out all the shorts, but like no one's even long on margin yet. And like typically with these sorts of mega pumps, like people could take a long time to get on a margin, and that's true. So like the bullish argument could be like, look, like there's a lot of people that weren't long, 100 breaks, and they just psychologically flip and say, fuck it, like I need to get long now. Or now you get people who want to buy the dip. Very plausible that that ends up being the case. I do think there's a lot less hot money in this market, a lot more PTSD to like marginal money than the past, but that is the case. Another bullish argument someone can make, like, hey, look, like alts are nowhere close to where they were in when we were here last time. Like, look, ETH is pumped. Cool, ETH is pumped off 1,500, like it's up 50%. But dude, ETH was at 4,000 in December. ETH was still like mid 3,000s in January, right? Solana, right? Like Solana was at 300. Like it's at 160. Cool. Like look at other coins. Like look at coins that have been beat up even more, like TIA. TIA is at 270. Like TIA was at $9, right? What's something else? Doge. Like Doge is pumped. Right? Doge pumped a lot today, but Doge was at 48 cents at its peak. It's now at 20 cents. So it's all a game of perspective. Like my view of this personally is like if there's like a pool of capital, which is like alt froth, right? Like alt froth, like whatever the max of this is, right? Like let's say let's say we can quantify it as some number, like maximum alt froth can be equal to like some constant C. I think where we're at right now, and let's say this is like max alt froth in December. I think where we're at now in May, like we're looking at like a very small fraction of C, right? Like we're looking at something, maybe I shouldn't have used C, but like something way less, whatever the max alt froth is, it's going to be way less than what it was like in December. So like, I don't know. I don't think these things have that much room to run overall, to be honest. Like, I don't think Doge is going to be able to make it back to 40 cents. I don't think. I think ETH is an exception. I don't know if Farcoin is going to be able to make it back to $2. Look, you could pick out, you can pick 100 alts, and maybe 5 of them will make it back close to their all-time highs, right? Like Sui has already done that basically. Sui has like gone pretty close. Like XRP is like somewhat strong too. Not that strong, I guess. Like it's still down a lot, but it didn't really dump that much, to be honest. But like for every one of these alts, you have like a Litecoin, or you have like a Trump, or you have a TIA. And so like I think again overall, I don't even remember what chart I did. I did this little analysis on. With the ETH, maybe it's the ETH chart. Never mind. Whatever. Whatever like maximum these alts end up pumping to is just going to be a lot less, and I think that is the case. Like I'm actually a lot more bearish overall at alts than I am on Bitcoin. But again, that being said, like things could pump, and because like we got here now, like you could have a situation where like froth actually, like people actually just start speculating and start piling in for a while before you get some sort of dip. And lastly, like you have macro factors being bullish, right? So like now you have this trade war bullshit. You have like gold back close to I think 3,300 or 3,400. Not even sure where it's at, to be honest. Yeah, like 3,300. So look, you have like these coins that have like, or not coins, you have these like macro factors which are like quote unquote bullish, which might encourage further speculation. So there are reasons to be bullish. And lastly, like the most important, like I don't know why I didn't even mention this, but the momentum, right? Like we're still at 103. The momentum's been up only. Why can't it continue to go up only? Very reasonable to think that as well. So, like, what are some potential paths I can see price doing here? Okay, so like the most obvious one, if you think the momentum's going to keep going, it just keeps going up. And in this case, like, I think you have to be a little bit cautious taking shorts. um, because like you don't want to fight that sort of momentum. I think some things to look for. If price action starts to get like these are some things I would look for. Price action starts to get a little saggy, like you get some spikes, whatever, but then alts start to run. I think that's bearish. I think in general, like basically if price stays flat and alts start to run, I think that's bearish. And that's something I would look for. That's something that that was one of the reasons that I gave for why I was bearish in March. And maybe I'll link that thread below, but like when we ended up running in March of last year, like and by the way, you can have a path where like the price dips and then you sort of chop in this range for a while, and then like price starts end up coming down. Or you could have something like middle of last year where like price pumped, you get some sort of pullback, some repump, and then things flush out. Again, like a lot of this sort of dictates on like how altcoins look, how price action looks. Like, are we able to print new highs and sustain new highs or not? Um, so in terms of like, and again, I'm probably not explaining this very well. Uh, I guess in terms of like where we are right now, everything's sort of on the table. But like we should evaluate as price action continues to play out. That's what I'm trying to say. Similar to like, and by the way, that's what I've been doing, right? Like, if you remember when we initially pumped, I said like I don't see how anyone's going to be a seller. Like I'm very bullish, and then 7 days or a week later, hey, some yellow flags pop up. Like let's evaluate those and make sure that we should still be bullish, right? And we talked about how open interest was maybe a bit elevated. Maybe the micro price action was a little bit looking a little bit like it could develop into something bearish, but we sort of weighed everything and said like, hey, it actually looks still pretty bullish. My gut tells me this is bearish. I think we go down, but I think it's a bit more of a gamble and a bit more of a gut call here. And I think like in a few days, assuming price hasn't just collapsed or mooned by then, we'll be able to make a lot better of a judgment call on what this price action sort of means. So, anyways, I don't know, a bit convoluted. I know I didn't explain things very well, but thought it was important to put a video out. And look, like as price change, as facts change, you sort of have to like change your bias a bit. And price has gone up $30,000. Alts have rebounded a lot. My bias has changed a bit, and not that I don't think we can pump. Like I'm not like 80% bearish, but I'm like definitely leaning bearish here. So yeah, with that being said, thanks guys for listening, and until next time, take care.